For the record.
A regional seminar for parliaments of the Caribbean, accelerating parliamentary action on climate change for a resilient and sustainable region. Senator the Honorable Alvina Reynolds, President of the Senate, Parliament of St. Lucia.
I must say it was a very healthy discourse with a very distinguished list of panelists who looked at how climate change impacts health of people in the region. We identified vulnerable population, for example, the elderly, babies, persons with disabilities, indigenous people, etc. How climate change impacts people directly and indirectly. We looked at with climate change, what you see happening, for example, extreme weather conditions, flooding, extreme heat. And with flooding, you might get damaged property, you might get deaths, you might get injuries, you get diseases such as waterborne diseases, waterborne illnesses, cholera. You get mosquito infestation that would bring dengue, leptospirosis, Zika, chikungunya. You will get lots of other things. And with the extreme heat, you get strokes. With the pollution, you will get cancer, you can get asthma. Lots of issues that will affect people. Non-communicable diseases will increase. With food production will be lowered with the floods, for example. And so we looked at how all of these impacts people's health. And we looked at mental health as well, because health is a state of well-being. It's whether it's mental health, physical health, and social, psychosocial health. When one has lost a home, when one has lost a family member in a flood, there's post-traumatic stress, there's mental health. How does that person come and deal with that afterwards if there is no structure in place? It looked at indirectly how climate change affects people. The destruction to health systems, health infrastructure, access to services, access to medical pharmaceuticals, for example. During a storm, when one cannot get access to the medical, to health centers, to the hospitals, when there is also, persons have to move, you have migration, you have displacements, persons have to move from their homes into an emergency shelter, and then you have abuse of children, you have abuse of elderly, persons are not at home and they don't feel comfortable. There's an issue of security. So there are a vast range of issues that can impact populations because of climate change, impact their health. So we looked at it, and some of the solutions that came across were very, I think, very simple, but it challenged us as parliamentarians. One, the information must filter down to the population. It cannot be that we continue to have those conversations in silos, in the parliaments, in the cabinet rooms, and the farmers, the young people, the nurses and doctors do not know how climate change can impact health and the services that they deliver to the people. It impacts the babies, the mother with the baby, lactating mother, the pregnant women, the women going through menopause. They all must know how this climate change will impact them and what they can do to be resilient, to mitigate against those impacts that will affect them in the long run. And so we looked at planning. And in the morning, we looked at data, the information, the research. When we get about what's happening with climate change, how do we use that information? How do we use the research and that data? How do we filter it down so it could make people empowered and they can make decisions about their lives? And so we looked at what is impacting our health. How do we mitigate? What do we do now? We filter down the information. We plan ahead of time. The discussion also went to that a lot is being done, but it's not with sense of that it is climate change because of climate change. We do it because there's a trough and person's house was destroyed, and so we do counseling. But it's not the link, the integration of climate change. And we needed to have this and not work in silos. Ministry of Health working on its own, Ministry of Infrastructure working on its own. Ministries across the board. We must learn to build that capacity. We must learn to break down those silos and work across and integrate that thinking about climate change it is affecting our country, it's affecting the world, it's affecting our communities, our populations. We need to act now. What can we do? How does it affect our building codes now? When we're building health centers, when we're building schools, how do we build a resilient infrastructure for health services delivery? And so we have smart health centers and smart hospitals and smart schools, for example. What do you put in place to ensure that hurricanes and storms will not damage extensively your infrastructure? Now that you have your digitalization of your medical records to ensure that after a storm and during a storm, you don't have only paper-like material and all your records going down the drain, down the river like it did in St. Lucia. So all of those decisions have to be made. We have to be proactive because climate change is now, it's real. And so once it impacts health, it impacts health. So we must guard our health and guard our wealth.
For the record.
For more information, visit our website at www.ttparliament.org and follow us on Facebook, X formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.